Think you know WWE 2K26, you've played the modes, built your roster, maybe spent way too much time in the creation suite. No judgment here. But I'd venture to say there's a lot packed into this game that went completely under the radar when 2K launched it. Today, we're diving deep into 10 curiosities about WWE 2K26 that they didn't exactly go out of their way to highlight. And some of them will change the way you look at this game. Let's get into it. If there is a community within wrestling games that has always been passionate and dedicated beyond expectation, it's the CAW creation community. These people spend hours, sometimes entire days, sculpting every detail of a custom character to make it look identical to an independent wrestler, an anime character, or simply the most absurd creation imagination allows. And for years, the slot limit was a frustrating wall that forced painful choices between deleting a creation you loved or giving up on making a new one. With 200 slots now, double the previous amount, that wall has finally come down for good. Body morphing is the kind of tool that separates a good character editor from a truly powerful one. Before, you were stuck with proportions that felt almost right, but never exactly what you wanted. With real morphing, you can create anything from a 330 pounds wrestler with a bull neck to that lean, agile heel who looks like he came straight out of a Japanese wrestling manga, along with two-tone hair, which seems like a small detail but completely transforms a character's visual personality. The editor starts to have that creative freedom we've always wanted. You stop adapting your vision to the game's limitations and start putting your actual vision on the screen. Doubling the image capacity is the detail hardcore creators will feel immediately. Many of the best CAWs we see circulating online depend on imported images for clothing details, custom tattoos, faction logos, and specific textures. When this limit is small, you have to make hard choices about what stays and what goes. With double the space, a single talented creator can build an entire roster of characters with a level of detail that honestly rivals the game's official characters in terms of care and attention. And that's exactly what that final line of the curiosity captures perfectly. You can create an entire roster just of CAWs. That's not marketing hyperbole. It's a real possibility now. Imagine an independent wrestling fan community that can recreate the entire cast of a regional promotion they love, put it in universe mode, and play a whole season with those characters evolving, suffering persistent injuries, and competing for titles. With all the new tools together, WWE 2K26 stops being just a WWE game and becomes a wrestling creation platform that we mold however we want. That is huge. Seriously, when I saw that WWE 2K26 was arriving with over 400 playable superstars and legends, my first reaction was, wait, for real? That's absurd to even think about? It's not just a big number for a trailer, it's a quantity that actually changes how we play with the game. Think about it. Before, you had to choose between a limited roster and maybe missing a specific idol or a current wrestler who's blowing up. Now, it's almost like having the entire wrestling universe in the palm of your hand, ready for any dream match you've ever had. And this isn't just about quantity, it's about pure creative freedom. Want to put 1980s Andre the Giant against the current Roman Reigns in a dream bout? You can. Want to form a tag team with two legends who never teamed up in real life, like Trish Stratus and Lita from the 2000s? You can. Want to see how an NXT rookie fares against an Attitude Era veteran? You can. This massive roster removes that frustration of, my favorite isn't here, and opens up space for experiments that were previously impossible or required complicated mods. It's as if the selection menu turned into an infinite toy box. What excites me most is seeing this balanced mix between the legends who built the business and the stars writing the next chapter right now. It's not just a pile of old names. It's a living timeline of wrestling. You can go from pure classics like Bruno Sammartino or Dusty Rhodes straight to the high-flying style of a modern Rey Mysterio or the brute force of a Bianca Belair. This depth makes career mode, or even a quick match, much richer because every choice has a historical context or a contrast of styles that you can feel in the gameplay. It's a respect for the past while celebrating the present. This huge number isn't just for checking boxes. It's an invitation for us to lose hours exploring, discovering unexpected combinations, and creating our own stories within the squared circle. When you're scrolling through that menu and see names you didn't even know were there, or recognize a childhood idol you never dreamed of seeing playable again, that's when the game stops being just a product and becomes a true celebration of everything wrestling was and is. It's hard not to walk away smiling, just imagining the possibilities. Look, when 2K announced that 4 new match types were coming to WWE 2K26, I just stood there for a few seconds processing what I was reading. Inferno match, I Quit match, 3 stages of hell. And as a bonus, the return of the dumpster match. This isn't just adding random content to a wrestling game. It's bringing back memories that many people thought they'd never see again. Each of these modes has a history, a specific identity, and putting them all together in one package is like 2K saying, "We heard you." The Inferno match is already one of the most insane premises wrestling has ever created. You literally have to push your opponent into the flames surrounding the ring to win. Imagine playing this with that massive roster of over 400 characters and choosing the right combatants to make that dramatic cinematic fight you've always wanted. Then you take the I Quit match, which is the opposite in style, but equally intense. No pinfalls, no normal submissions. You have to make your opponent scream, "I quit," into the microphone. It's the kind of match that generates the best moments of comebacks, resilience, and character work. In previous games, it was sorely missed. The 3 stages of hell is that mode that requires actual strategy because each round has different rules and you need to be more complete than your opponent in every sense. It's a test of skill that goes beyond just pressing buttons at the right time. But I confess that what gave me that instant nostalgia was the dumpster match. This mode is so outrageously 90s that it's impossible not to laugh with affection. If you followed wrestling back then, you know exactly where this mode came from and what kind of madness it represents. Seeing it back in 22.6 with modern visuals and this entire cast is a direct gift from the devs to those who grew up watching Raw every week. What unites these 4 modes is exactly that. They offer experiences that standard modes simply can't deliver. It's the kind of addition that transforms the game from just another annual edition into something worth revisiting for hours, testing different combinations of wrestlers in scenarios ranging from the epic to the completely absurd. And look, in wrestling, well-executed absurdity is art. These new match types prove that WWE 2K26 doesn't just want to be an updated catalog. It wants to be a box of organized chaos that we'll love exploring. When I heard about this new object physics, I got really excited because it finally feels like the game is taking environmental interaction seriously in a way that makes every fight feel less like a predefined animation and more like a genuine moment of controlled chaos. It's not just another technical detail hidden in the options menu. It's something that instantly changes how we think about approaching a match, especially with that huge roster at our disposal. Just imagine you're carrying your opponent on your shoulder for a Samoan drop, but instead of simply dropping them in the middle of the ring, you manage to elbow them in the face while still in motion, throwing them straight against the steel steps or the announcer's table with that heavy, satisfying impact that the new physics brings. This removes that stop and start feeling that sometimes broke immersion in previous games. Now the action flows. And you can chain moves together in a way that feels like it's emerging from the moment, as if you're reacting to what the opponent is doing in the heat of the action. It's incredible how this opens up space for those spots we only see on pay-per-views, but could never quite replicate in the games. Want to kick someone in the throat while they're trying to climb the ropes and send them flying into the ring post? You can. Want to use the steel steps as an extension of your attack, grabbing a stunned wrestler and smashing their head into them with a move that looks like it hurts just to watch? You can do that too. Physics isn't just about brute force. It responds to angle, speed, and the type of object. So tossing someone lightly into the barricade doesn't have the same effect as a spear launched with full pressure. And that subtle difference is what makes us want to test every possible combination repeatedly. In the end, this attention to environmental detail is the kind of thing that combined with the 400 plus superstar roster and those brutal match types we already talked about, transforms WWE 2K26 from a simple simulator into a true creative sandbox. You start looking at the ring no longer as a fixed stage, but as a set of tools. That TV camera in the corner, the ring crew's water bucket, even the floor mats. Everything becomes potential for a moment that will make your friends scream from the couch or your own heart race a bit. It's these touches of freedom that make the difference between playing a match and telling a story that feels like it came straight out of an old episode of SmackDown. This one is, in my opinion, one of the most underrated additions that WWE 2K26 is bringing, and I bet a lot of people will overlook it without realizing how much it changes the experience. A persistent injury system in universe mode isn't just a cosmetic detail. It's a layer of organic narrative that the game builds for you without you having to do anything at all. You spend weeks in the game focusing on an opponent's knee, and suddenly that character appears in the next cutscene limping with a bandage, clearly compromised. That is automatic storytelling, and it is absurdly powerful. What really excites me about this mechanic is that it forces you to think strategically in a way that previous games never required. Before, a match was a match and it ended there. Now, if you know you're facing someone 2 weeks from now inside universe, it makes sense to have your wrestler focus on the opponent's leg this week, so they arrive at the main confrontation slower, more vulnerable, more human. It's exactly this kind of planning that makes universe mode stop being a collection of random matches and start feeling like an actual wrestling program with real consequences. And there's the visual detail that makes all of this truly come to life. The bandages, the way they walk in cutscenes, the different posture during the entrance. These are the small touches that separate a game that simulates wrestling from a game that tells wrestling stories. Imagine your favorite character arriving at the arena in a wheelchair, pushed by a manager after weeks of suffering attacks to the knee. And that isn't a cinematic the game just decided to show by chance. You built that scene through your choices weeks prior. That is real emotional involvement with pixels on the screen, and it's hard to explain to those who have never felt it, but those who play universe mode will understand immediately. In the world of wrestling games, we've always wanted the consequences of matches to matter beyond that one night. This mechanic answers that desire directly. It brings universe mode closer to that feeling of following a real wrestling product, where a wrestler who suffered an accident in the ring weeks ago is still visibly affected in the big pay-per-view match. When you add this to the massive roster, the brutal new modes, and the improved object physics, you start to realize that WWE 2K26 is clearly trying to build something denser, more alive, and more personal than any previous edition. And at least in this regard, it seems they hit the nail on the head. Okay, this is the curiosity I didn't expect I needed to hear in my life. But now that I've heard it, I can't stop thinking about it. Psycho Clown, who is already a visually disturbing character by nature, has a hidden detail that 2K put in the game that is both brilliant and slightly terrifying. You can rip off his latex mask mid-match. And what's underneath? A second layer of a flesh-like face. He doesn't become unmasked. He doesn't have a normal face. He's left with something even more disturbing than the starting point. This is a level of detail you don't expect to find in a mainstream wrestling game. What makes this even more special is how it works. R2 or RT with the down directional, a specific input that was clearly designed to be a discovery, not an obvious function in the menu. 2K hid this on purpose, so it would be a wait, what moment when someone found it. And this kind of interactive Easter egg, which isn't just visual, but actively changes how the character appears for the rest of the entire match, is exactly the kind of care for detail that differentiates a game made with laziness from a game made with passion. Someone in a development meeting fought for this detail, and I want to give that person a hug. The fact that the second layer persists in cutscenes is what really elevates this from a cool Easter egg to something memorable. You don't just see the change in one isolated match and forget it. He enters the next universe segment still with that flesh mask, appears in victory animations with it, celebrates with the belt with it. It's the same logic as the persistent injury system, but applied in a completely absurd and unexpected way. The game is telling you your choices stick, even the craziest ones, and that consistency, even in such a bizarre detail, shows respect for the player. But let's be honest, part of the fun of this is exactly how visually disturbing the final result is. Psycho Clown with the latex mask is already intense. Psycho Clown with a layer of exposed flesh limping toward his opponent in the middle of an Inferno match is something you won't want in your room at 3 a.m. with the lights off. It's the kind of detail you show a friend just to see their reaction, and it'll probably be filmed and posted on Twitter 1,000 times. In the end, that's exactly what makes a game remembered. Not just what it does well, but the completely unexpected moments that no one asked for, but everyone will love discovering. Well, this is the news that will divide opinions, and I'll be honest about what I think. 2K decided to abandon the traditional DLC model and dive headfirst into the Battle Pass system with the Ringside Pass, divided into 6 seasons per year. In theory, the proposal sounds generous. You play, accumulate XP, and unlock content, including extra superstars, just by playing, without paying separately for each character pack like before. For those who always complained about spending extra money on every DLC, this looks like a win. But as with every model change in a big game, the devil is in the details. What really matters here is understanding what earning by playing means in practice within each season. If the progression pace is fair, without those artificial gatekeepers that make you feel like the game is pushing you to buy an accelerated premium pass, then this could genuinely be one of the best changes WWE 2K26 has brought. 6 seasons a year means the game will have a constant flow of new content for months, which is much better than receiving a DLC pack once and waiting for the next one with no news in the meantime. This pace keeps the community active and gives you a reason to come back every week. What worries me a bit, to be transparent, is the industry's track record with this type of system. We've seen many games announce battle passes as completely free for those who play, and then create a parallel premium version that effectively hides the best content behind a second paywall. If the Ringside Pass follows that path, the sense of freedom it promises becomes a well-constructed illusion. On the other hand, if 2K actually delivers significant superstars as a reward for normal progression without needing to pay anything beyond the base game, then the model will indeed be revolutionary for the franchise. In the end, what will define if the Ringside Pass was a good idea or a disguised step backward is the execution throughout these 6 seasons. The promise is good, and I genuinely hope 2K delivers. A game with over 400 characters on the roster, brutal new match types, improved physics, and a continuous content system that doesn't require an extra fortune, that would be the complete package. But let's follow it season by season before celebrating, because the model only proves itself fair or unfair when you're actually playing and seeing if the content arrives consistently and accessibly for everyone. The multiplayer open world mode of WWE 2K26 is available on Steam, and that significantly changes the conversation about the game on that platform. For years, PC was treated as the second-class version of 2K games, receiving ports that sometimes arrived late or incomplete. Seeing an ambitious mode like this arriving simultaneously on Steam is a clear sign that the company is taking PC seriously this time, and that deserves recognition. The faction system is the detail that caught my attention the most here. You start the game by choosing between Shadows, Anarchy, or Tradition, and this choice isn't just aesthetic. It defines your identity within the open world, your community, probably your quests, and how other players perceive you. It's the kind of structure online games use to create organic rivalries between players, that sense of belonging that makes you defend your group as if it were a personal matter. In the context of wrestling, where factions have always been a central part of the narrative, this makes total sense and seems like a very smart design choice. What elevates the island above a simple multiplayer lobby are the layers of content it brings along. Tower mode, quests, and full cutscenes. This means you're not just walking around a map waiting for someone to show up to fight. There is progression, there is story, there are concrete objectives that pull you back every time you log in. Full cutscenes within an open world mode are a real commitment to narrative that most online fighting games don't even dream of offering. You're not just playing matches, you're participating in something that has a beginning, middle, and continuation. The combination of all this specifically on PC opens a huge door. The PC community has a history of engaging deeply with long duration modes, creating content, sharing experiences, and building communities around games that offer real depth. The island arriving on Steam with this full structure of factions, quests, and cutscenes is a bet that there is a PC audience ready to dive headfirst into this wrestling open world. If the technical execution of the port is solid, this could easily become the most played mode of the franchise among PC users for a long time. I swear when I read this curiosity for the first time, I laughed to myself. Not in a negative way, but that laugh of this is so absurdly specific and so perfectly correct that I can't believe someone actually programmed it. The announcer's table not always breaking on the first impact is, without exaggeration, one of the most honest details of realism a wrestling game has ever had the courage to include. Because anyone who follows wrestling live knows exactly what we're talking about. You've seen it. That moment where the wrestler jumps from the ring with everything, lands on the table, and it doesn't give way. Awkward silence, and then comes the second attempt, sometimes the third, until the structure finally collapses. These moments in real life have an affectionate name in the community, a botch. And ironically, some of the most memorable botches in wrestling history involve exactly stubborn tables that refuse to cooperate. 2K turned this classic accident into an intentional mechanic, and it's brilliant in a way that goes beyond simple technical realism. It means that when you play that epic ringside fight and send your opponent flying onto the announcer's table, there's no guarantee it'll work the first time. You'll have that moment of genuine tension, that second of will it or won't it, which is exactly what makes live wrestling so exciting and unpredictable. What this does for your match's narrative is huge. Before, the table was just another stage object with a guaranteed result. Now, it has its own personality. That second or third attempt to finally break the structure creates a spontaneous story within the match, a sequence of action and reaction that no script could plan. And when the table finally gives way, the emotional impact is much greater precisely because you waited for it, tried more than once, and built up the tension. It's the difference between an explosion that happens out of nowhere and one you see coming slowly, and yet you still can't look away. In the context of everything WWE 2K26 is bringing, the specific detail tells me a lot about the developer's mindset in this edition. They weren't just thinking about adding impressive features for trailers, they were thinking about what real wrestling looks like, how it feels, including the imperfections that are part of the charm. A game that simulates perfect successes all the time loses the soul of real wrestling. A game that simulates that stubborn table, that try again moment, and that explosion of relief when it finally works. That game understands wrestling in a way that goes far beyond just reproducing moves correctly. Look, most of the details we've discussed so far about WWE 2K26 are impressive for what they add to the gameplay, for the mechanical depth, for the realism. This one is impressive for a completely different reason. It's pure love for the game disguised as an inside joke. The developers programmed Michael Cole, Booker T, and Wade Barrett to notice that you're standing in the ring doing nothing and start roasting you on the mic. This doesn't improve any system, it doesn't add any new mechanics, it serves no purpose other than to make you laugh alone in front of the screen. And that's exactly why it's brilliant. The choice of commentators makes total sense when you think about it. Cole is that classic announcer who tries to remain professional, but inevitably slips in a sarcastic comment. Barrett has that dry British humor that delivers the joke without smiling. And Booker T is Booker T, who is already a character so much larger than life that any sentence that comes out of his mouth will sound like gold, regardless of the context. Putting these three together, commenting on a motionless wrestler in the ring, is practically a ready-made script for the best moment of unintentional comedy a wrestling game has ever produced. But the detail that really made me stop and laugh was Booker T praising himself if you choose him to fight. This is a direct reference to his real personality, that affectionate and charismatic ego every wrestling fan knows and loves. Someone in the 2K offices is clearly a big enough fan to know that Booker T praising himself isn't forced caricature. It's simply Booker T being Booker T. Turning that into a game mechanic, no matter how tiny, is the kind of care for real characters that makes you feel the game was made by people who actually watched the product. In the end, details like this are what create that you have to see this moment every game needs to have. It's the kind of thing you discover by accident, record, send to your friend, and wait for their reaction. It doesn't appear in any official trailer, it's not listed as a main feature in any preview, and precisely because of that, it has an emotional weight that a lot of bigger things can't replicate. It's the game winking at you, saying that the devs had as much fun making this as you'll have discovering it. And in a game so full of content and systems as WWE 2K26, it's these hidden moments that stay in memory for much longer.
Two superstars will start in the ring at regular intervals